Hi, I'm Sayed. Thank you very much for inviting me today. Well, before I begin, I shall apologize for two things. First, for my voice. As you see, I caught cold 3 days ago. I was thinking I would get better, but actually not so much better. So bear with me. I hope it gets better, but I try my best. Second is for the naive PowerPoints that you will see. I just have put some titles to be able to follow my stream of thought. So they are not really anything that you can benefit a lot. So I try to make my lectures as clear as possible, because the PowerPoints will not help a lot. Yeah, sure. Okay. So my background is in analytic philosophy. Perhaps you can feel that I have been already contaminated with everything in kind of North American philosophy. And I had been working and publishing in philosophy of language and logic stuff about meaningfulness, about structure of thought, I don't know, relationship between logic and meaning, and so on and so forth. But today I try just to give a kind of review talk, introducing the most important debates in contemporary analytic philosophy about reasoning and rationality. In the first talk, I will be trying to just spotlight on the main ideas of rationality. And the second one, I will try to have a critical review of a forthcoming book by one of my supervisors, Adam Morton, once in University of Alberta and now in British Columbia, about bounded thinking, which gives you a sense of the contemporary debate about rationality. You know, Adam Morton's view versus, I don't know, John Pollock's and Weyrich and Harman and other people. So this is just the basic idea. If I'm not clear everything, if you find some stuff really crazy, just please stop me and ask questions, make your comments. So feel free. Can we start now? It's okay? Good? Okay. As everyone knows, a very common conception of rationality is instrumental rationality. Instrumental rationality in the sense of getting what you want by means that you have. So something, well, I say something is a quantifier ranging over many things, so desires, actions, beliefs. Something is rational if it fits your ends, if it is the thing that you aimed at. So you get that in virtue of what you have, roughly speaking, in a smart way. Okay. If you are doing this, you are doing something rational. Let's call this instrumental rationality. It's a very vague concept, and we should clarify it. But this concept of rationality at this level of abstraction is so vague that you can apply it in both science, I don't know, economics, philosophy, psychology, and other things. So we need to fine-grain it and then fine-tune it. One distinction, as you are familiar, is between theoretical and practical distinctions between rationality of belief and rationality of theories, which we put them on the category of theoretical rationality, versus rationality of actions, rationality of desires, rationality of preferences, which are kind of more on the side of practical rationality, but we are not really clear how to go from one to the other one. So one direction that people think that this is the way that we follow is that we take rationality in choice and action as basis, and then we try to build on rationality of preference and belief in terms of that. Okay, so this is one direction. The other one is the converse. You start from rationality of preferences and belief and try to make sense of rationality of choice and action. But as far as I can see, the main concept, as Weirich has introduced in his recent book, 2004, it's not recent, and his previous articles, is that people working within the framework of instrumental rationality think that the right direction is to start from rationality in choice, decide about that, and then make your view about rationality of belief in virtue of rationality of choice. So this is common view. The other thing is that when you think about rationality within an instrumental rationality framework, you have usually preferences. So you have a goal, you have some other options, and the other options are managed in such a way that if you cannot get this goal, you want the second one to be such a thing, the third one another thing. So you have a hierarchy of preferences. And the view is, okay, what is for a person or a theory to be rational or an act to be rational? I'm just fudging on these different issues, persons, theories. What is for theory to be rational? If you just look at the hierarchy of preferences. So people divide on this issue. One group is thinking that the gist of rationality is to make the table of preferences consistent in a particular sense. Consistency of preferences. This consistency is different from consistency in logic. Consistency in logic is that you have a formal system. The formal system should have syntax, semantics, and then as long as you are speaking within proof theory, you want your system be such that no proposition is proved simultaneously with negation. So it's not the case that P and not P are proved together. This is consistency in logic. Okay? We don't want to talk about that. Consistency in preferences is that you have a hierarchy of preferences, and you want that preferences be transitive in a particular sense. In the sense that if A is preferred to B, some properties of A are also preferred to properties of B. And the transitivity holds. So we call this transitive preferences. In particular, economists tend to leave the discussion about basic goals. Because when you want to order your preferences, you should have a sense of your basic goals. Okay, what I need. Because preferences are things that you order them depending on what you want to reach. So you should have a sense of your goals, basic goals. And what are basic goals? Something that is a philosophical issue. So decision theorists do not mainly talk about basic goals. They do not talk about, they talk about if you have basic goals, how you should make your preferences consistent. And if you can't do this, then you have a rational decision, you have a rational agent, you have a rational person, so on and so forth. So it's one basic framework of rationality. So you talk about rationality in the sense of instrumental rationality. Instrumental rationality is rationality in terms of means and ends, means and aims, what you have and what you want, to form a consistent way of getting what you want in virtue of what you have. You need to be consistent in your preferences. This consistency is different from logical consistency. And to have this consistency, you should have an understanding of your basic goals. And if you have that understanding, in virtue of your philosophical view, not merely philosophical views, but mainly philosophical views, then you can build up a theory of rationality. Yeah, questions?
Do you distinguish between goals and preferences?
Well, yes.
How?
Good question. But before that, because we do not know each other's names, so could you please introduce yourself? I do not know, actually. Sorry. Yeah. Could you please introduce yourself, first name, last name, full name, whatever you like? Do you want? No, when you ask your question, yeah, not going around and asking that.
Hi, I'm Ezra Tzfadia, third year doctoral student at Princeton.
Yeah, so how should I address you? How should I? Ezra? Good. Ezra asked a very good question. Okay, do you distinguish between goals and preferences? I said yes. And how do you do that? Well, I think basic goals are things that, there are different distinctions, okay, but one is this. Basic goals are things that are in a sense abstract. They are not indexed to your actual situation. Okay, so my basic goal, for example, in economics, our basic goal is welfare of people. Okay, but when we come to the actual context, we add extra items, we get an array of preferences, how to fulfill that basic, how to reach that basic goal. So basic goal is first more abstract. Second is not practical in some sense. Okay, basic goals are basic in the sense that they just show us the direction. But preferences are more fine-grained. They are practical in the sense that they have some items from the context, from actual situation, from actual positions that we are in, and the means that we have available to reach, to go toward the basic goals. Okay, so this is one way to distinguish them, in the sense of abstractness and practicality. Okay, good. Okay, within that, okay, what I've done so far, I said there is a very broad concept of rationality, working in philosophy, economics, psychology, science, perhaps. Considering in a very abstract sense, it is instrumental rationality. I'm actually not very clear here, because economists, for example, do not really do just instrumental rationality. There is a lot in philosophy of economics and economics about what are basic goals. Whether, for example, justice is the main goal that we should go for, or welfare is one, or I don't know, some political goal. So it's not really that what I say that economists' framework of rationality is instrumental rationality. I do not mean that they do not have any other rival competing conception of rationality. I'm just saying this is the dominant one. Okay, this is the one that works in most contexts, in most cases. Okay, you have that conception of rationality, but that conception can be sharpened in many different ways. One historically dominant conception of instrumental rationality is maximizing self-interest. The idea comes from ancient Greek. Okay, if you have rationality in the sense of instrumental rationality, and if instrumental rationality means getting the goal by means of what you have, and if you add to this picture that the goal is my self-interest, okay, if you add to this picture the goal is my self-interest, you get to the maximizing self-interest conception of rationality. So it's a kind of it's like instrumental rationality is like a genus, so to speak, in Aristotelian ramification of things. And then you have one kind of it, which is maximizing self-interest. Okay, because the goal is just self-interest. So in this sense, rationality would be promotion of self-interest. And which actions are rational? The actions that maximize self-interest. Okay, in many cases, it's not clear how to find such actions. Then you perhaps appeal to probability theory. So you talk about maximizing expected self-interest. What is that? It means that my main goal is self-interest. I don't know which action leads to maximize self-interest. So what I do is that I calculate probabilities, use expected theory and try to figure out which action leads to maximum expected utility, depending on the probabilities of each case. Okay. As you may see, this is the view is connected with what we call in philosophy egoism. Egoism is a view, roughly speaking, as though you are in the center of the world. You are not in the center of the world. You are the center of the world. It seems that you are everything. So what is rational should be understood in terms of what is good for me, what maximizes my self-interest. Well, the view still is dominant. Okay, so we just want to introduce it and pass away, and put it aside. But two of the view itself has different forms. You have instrumental rationality, you have maximizing self-interest, conception of rationality, but still you have different forms of this view. One is that if you say, my self-interest is exhausted by, is characterized by my satisfaction. So what really is the core of rationality is to maximize my satisfaction. I don't care about other things. One version of it can be found in Robinfeld, 1989. Or you can say, no, I believe rationality is maximizing self-interest. And I believe that self-interest is somehow self-centered. But satisfaction does not exhaust the whole concept of self-interest. I need to add happiness. If I'm satisfied but not happy enough, the action has not been rational. The action should maximize my satisfaction, happiness, and well-being. So depending on what you put into the conception of self-interest, you get different varieties of maximizing self-interest conception. Okay, I know it doesn't seem interesting to you from the point of view Islamic point of philosophy, because it's so, it seems to be so narrow in terms of content of rationality. But I believe that some Muslim philosophers even thought that rationality, just a moment, thought that rationality can be explained in this sense if you add extra items to self-interest. So if you define your self-interest in terms of not satisfaction but happiness and well-being, and then if you add to the concept of well-being religious items strong enough to guarantee fulfillment of your whole religious ideas, you have a legitimate conception of rationality. So it might not be it might not be as simple as it seems. Okay, its conception might be useful even in more religious context, though it is primarily economical in this sense. But do you want to ask a question?
I guess just to clarify, because
sure.
They're very fine distinctions that you're making. So do you define happiness in a purely psychological sense? Connected to the idea of satisfaction, so it would be sort of psychologism versus idealism, I guess.
Okay, I'm not sure if I got the question right, but first of all, I do not try to defend the view. I'm just trying to introduce the view. Yes. Second. Do someone who thinks that rationality is instrumental rationality and thinks that rationality at the end is maximizing self-interest, does such a person need to define happiness in psychological terms? Is this the question?
In the context of broader aims?
It could be one way to construe the distinction. Okay. But what these people need is to have a distinction between self-interest and satisfaction. How to cash it out is a different issue. Okay, What they need is that self-interest is a broader, different concept than satisfaction. And perhaps what they need to run their discussion is to distinguish also between satisfaction and happiness. Okay, yeah, this much is needed. But how to give a neat picture is a different story. Yeah, good. Are you following? Does it make sense? No?
Trying to grasp all these $10 words.
If I'm not clear, please just let me know at this stage. So we don't want to pass from this stage. I want to tell you about more contemporary stuff in an hour. So,
Sorry, can I just...
yeah, go ahead.
In order just to clarify some ideas, Azad from Russian Federation, Russian Islamic University, Kazan City. When you've talked about the satisfaction and happiness, how can we distinguish these two terms? Can we say that satisfaction is included to the term of happiness in this case? Or is that you will be focused on later, or can you just...
Well, actually, yeah, it's a good question that I will not perhaps come back to it later on, because I know it is important, and it plays a significant role in formulating this conception of rationality, but we do not focus on that, because what I wanted to introduce is the distinction that somehow just being satisfied is not enough to define rational act. You want more. Okay, so people who think that you need more than satisfaction, need to add to this conception of self-interest to make it a valuable goal for rational act. So they aim at more than satisfaction. But you may be right. You might say, well, we have broader concepts, say happiness, which includes satisfaction. Then some people will be happy with that. And they say, yes, this is the reason we say we need more than satisfaction to define rationality. Okay, so that's right. Okay, but before putting this conception of rationality aside, I want to mention two famous objections, two well-known objections about that, and standard replies to them. The first objection is that, well, if you define rationality mainly in this sense, I mean self-interest maximizing, then pursuing self-interest would be just war between everyone, war between all against all. It would be war, because everyone, it's like a jungle, basically. The objection is this. If rationality was to pursue to maximize self-interest, and everyone wanted to act rationally, everyone wanted to maximize self-interest, you would have a jungle. You should somehow overlook, in some cases, things that maximize your self-interest to live humanly, to live in a human society. This is the standard objection. Well, and as you may have heard, Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, 3 centuries ago, made a kind of convincing reply to that, which is, the reply goes like this. Okay, it's not the case that if everyone pursues to maximize his or her own self-interest, the whole society, the group, collapse in terms of rationality, because there would be war of all against all. Rather, if everyone wants to be successful in promotion of self-interest, the most effective way is to cooperate. Because if and only if you cooperate with your members, your classmates, your people in the same society, only in this way you can promote your self-interest. So Smith is trying to make this case that promotion of self-interest is coextensive with maximum cooperation. And maximum cooperation improves the whole group. So the only way to improve the whole group in terms of rationality, to be more rational, is to follow maximizing self-interest. So this is kind of standard reply to that objection. The second objection to the view is that promotion of self-interest rules out altruism. What is altruism? Altruism is that you do something not for your own good. You do something for someone else's benefit. If rationality is maximize your self-interest, you never do any action rationally to minimize or at least not maximize your own self-interest. So this conception of rationality rules out altruism. Altruism is morally good. Therefore, this conception of rationality rules out something morally good. Conclusion, this conception of rationality clashes with morality. So we should do something. This is the objection. The classic reply is that it doesn't. Amartya Sen, famous economist, in a paper Rational Fools, I think it was published in 1970s, tries to explain that self-interest just means that people pursue their own desires, maximize their own desires. And there's nothing in there prohibiting doing something for someone else if the whole thing can be categorized as your desire. So it might be part of your desire to do something for someone else, and because it's part of your desire, it maximizes your self-interest, and because it's part of your desire to do something for someone else, it also allows altruism. So maximizing self-interest, conception of rationality, does not clash with morality. Basic standard reply. So I want to put aside this conception of rationality, just enough for that. So this is one way of thinking about rationality. Any questions? So what I've done, I've introduced instrumental rationality. I've introduced one version of that, maximizing self-interest. I mentioned two objections to that, and then standard replies. So far, it's classic. Any questions, concerns, clarification, comments? Or can you help me if you have seen anything similar that I should learn from all of you? I'm pretty sure you know a lot. And I'm ignorant of many things that you know. Do you see any affinity between this concept of rationality and what you have worked on? You see similar traits that you want to talk about? Guys, go ahead.
I took an entire course on this. With philosophy of agency and interpretation with Jeffrey Stout.
Oh.
And we read Davidson, Brandom, Anscombe, Rorty, sort of. Yeah. Good. Did a lot of this.
So it sounds familiar to you.
Yeah.
And do you think this kind of rationality is in this line, or kind of more abstract, more general in the sense of, if you add, I want to talk about another version of, I wanted to talk about another version of that. I don't know if you have it here. Yeah, maximizing utility, which is more or less similar. I do not talk about this. I just skip this part. But it's a kind of try to make instrumental conception of rationality more practical by subsuming it under utility maximizing. So instead of saying, I want to maximize my self-interest, I want to maximize utility. And this is familiar from Bentham. It's not in philosophy, in moral philosophy. It's just talking about maximizing pleasure as what is good. What is good is what maximizes pleasure, and pleasure is a kind of utility for Bentham. Okay, so this is another version of this same idea. Yeah.
Shall we say that this rationality is what in Islamic philosophy they speak about aql al-ma'ash, or